Hello, this is CBC Windsor News. I'm Acton Clarkin. We begin with an Environment Canada alert, warning people in Windsor of walloping winds. Kathleen Saylors braved the conditions to fill us in.
Environment Canada says to brace for strong wind gusts over the next 2 days into Thursday. Water levels are down in the Detroit River, and one fisherman we spoke with says it's unlike anything he's ever seen.
When you get a heavy west wind, it pushes all the water to the other end of the lake. So Buffalo, that area on Lake Erie is full of water and basically drains the river and the western basin of Lake Erie. I've seen it low, but I've never seen it this low, and I've been fishing for over 40 years.
Winds will be gusting up to 80 or 90 kilometers an hour, according to the Weather Service, and that spells danger. Milson says people should not be out boating. He warns that underwater hazards that are normally hidden will now be exposed. Peter Barry is Windsor's harbour master, and he says the low water level is not a long-term issue.
So we've got beach I've never seen before. At 4.5, 5 feet, we see the difference here of where the water should be, almost 35 to 40 feet further out where the water is now. Again, this is not a long-term hazard. This is based on the wind and the weather. Some of this will come back. We do have low water levels. We will see those come back as part of the cycle. It's not time to panic, but it's time to react to what you have.
But there will be longer-term consequences to the environment. Too much wind blowing for too long can speed up erosion, according to the Conservation Authority. They've issued a shoreline alert.
And we could see some destabilization of shoreline structures to some extent. We could see some loss of sandy materials, especially once you get into the area out closer to Point Peak National Park and some of those areas off of Pigeon Bay.
In parts of Ontario, Environment Canada is warning of snowfall. Here in Windsor, for now, power outages are possible and loose objects could be blowing around. Kathleen Saylors, CBC News, Windsor.
Weather specialist Riley Laychuk has also been tracking the weather patterns for us from inside. What more can you tell us, Riley?
Well, thanks, Acton. Certainly, yes, a very busy day weather-wise, a very active day, not just because of the precipitation that we saw roll through early in the day, but what's to come. And a whole lot of wind. So southwestern Ontario right now under a special weather statement. We are looking at, as we get into Thursday, the potential of seeing some gusts up to 80 or 90 kilometers an hour. And not only could that be damaging in terms of, felling trees, the potential for maybe even some isolated power outages, but it also gives us a very good recipe for some lake effect snow and the impacts that the wind will have on our lakes. So you can see this area of low pressure spinning over Lake Michigan right now, and you can see some of the bands of snow that have been coming off the lake. That's classic lake effect snow, and we'll start to get into some of that, I think, into southwestern Ontario as we get into the day on Thursday. You can see some of those streamers starting to form on Lake Erie as well, pushing up into the Niagara region, and we have a very good setup for this as we get into the next 24 hours. First, you need a lot of lift, which we have a lot of wind up in the atmosphere, which will start to push some of this in, but you also need cold air along with this, and open and warm waters on the lake. So we have that recipe in place. So that is going to start to push some of those bands of lake effect snow into southwestern Ontario, further north into cottage country. In some cases, we're looking at some pretty extreme snowfall amounts as we get into the next 24 hours. I'll talk more about that and the warnings that we have in place when I come back.
Our newsroom has been sifting through federal files on government payouts to NextStar Energy. The company is promising thousands of local jobs. Emma Loop has the details on the dollars.
Millions or billions of dollars. Lots of numbers have swirled around Windsor's NextStar battery plant. It's a joint venture between Stellantis and LG Energy Solution and has found itself at the heart of political controversy since Stellantis announced it's moving a Jeep model from its Brampton plant to the U.S., despite its deals to get funding from the Canadian government.
This Liberal government and this Liberal finance minister forked over $15 billion tax dollars to the company that is moving their jobs south.
And I believe we've been highlighted in the public accounts at this point that the total fiscal outlay is about $42 million.
The federal government has 2 deals with NextStar. Now, new public documents show how much the government has actually spent so far, at least $530 million overall.
The first deal was signed in 2022 and pays NextStar up to $500 million under a program called the Strategic Innovation Fund. Earlier this month, the government released its annual public accounting records. Those, along with the ones from the previous fiscal year, show the government has spent at least $490 million. The government has said the money is mostly for construction expenses, and construction officially ended in September. The second deal, inked in 2023, is for up to $15 billion in battery production subsidies, 1/3 of which will be paid by the province.
The facility has been built, but the company is still hiring, and there's not been any production and sale of batteries yet. So the government has not spent $15 billion.
Jolie's department has previously refused to say how much it has paid in production subsidies thus far, saying it's too commercially sensitive. But a document obtained under Access to Information law shows NextStar had received around $40 million up until June. The industry department claimed the document wasn't specific to NextStar, despite the fact that it's the only company listed. Public accounts also show around $40 million paid to one unnamed company as part of contributions to electric vehicle battery manufacturers.
NextStar didn't respond to a request for comment, but in both contracts, the company agreed to hire 2,500 full-time employees in exchange for the funding. It says it's hired around 1,100 people so far. Emma Loop, CBC News, Windsor.
Mark Carney has new plans to boost two sectors of Canada's economy hit hard by American tariffs, steel and lumber. The support comes after the PM said he made a mistake by brushing off a question about stalled trade talks with Donald Trump. Ashley Burke has the latest.
A day after conceding he used a poor choice of words while dismissing questions about Donald Trump, the Prime Minister announced aid for some of the industries he offended.
We must protect our workers and our industries who are most exposed to U.S. tariffs.
Mark Carney further limiting the amount of foreign steel that can come into Canada at lower tariff rates,
to ensure that our steel producers have a bigger share of our market.
He's also pledging another $1 billion in loans and support for the lumber sector, vowing to prioritize housing projects with Canadian wood and bring down shipping costs.
We will make it more affordable to transport Canadian steel and lumber across this country by cutting freight rates for transporting steel and lumber interprovincially by 50%.
The announcement comes after days of controversy after he dismissed a question by CBC News. Last time you spoke to Trump, sorry?
Who cares? I mean, it's a detail. It's a detail. I don't have a burning issue to speak with the president about right now.
That comment didn't sit well with Robert Mandel, whose companies had to lay off more than 100 workers because of Trump's tariffs.
It struck me as being very tone deaf, being insensitive to the plight that not just the industry, but the employees in the industry.
His company manufactures welded steel tubing, including in the retractable roof at the Rogers Centre. Since the summer, he's been pushing for help for the steel sector and questions if Carney's announcement is repair work for a sector he upset.
It's an improvement without question over what they had initially agreed to do. We would still say we need more relief, especially from the free trade agreement countries.
At the announcement, questions didn't let up about when Carney last spoke to Trump.
My exchange with the president yesterday was not newsworthy. So it wasn't about I just responded to a question, wasn't newsworthy.
Carney says he's going to Washington next week for the FIFA World Cup and will see Trump there, but right now is focused on announcements like this one. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
Some Canadian music fans are taking home a little piece of this country's music history. Some of the late, great Gordon Lightfoot's personal things have been auctioned off in Toronto. Griffin Yeager was there.
A Canadian icon whose work and legacy means so much, and that love and legacy has been on display here in Toronto at the Gordon Lightfoot Estate Auction.
The snow is softly falling.
This was a star whose work helped define this country's cultural identity, carving out a legacy that still resonates with generations of listeners.
$200 on these.
And that's clear in the auction house. There were dozens of items for sale belonging to the late Canadian musician who died in 2023 at the age of 84. From wardrobe items, handwritten notes, billboard charts, the band's performance gear, gold records, and documentation about the Edmund Fitzgerald, the shipwreck that inspired one of his most famous songs.
The legend lives on from the trip on down of the big lake they go get sugar man.
And of course, there was this Performance Martin D18 guitar that he used with a smiley face sticker on the back that his daughter gave to him. That went for $380,000.
It's his tuner, right? His guitar tuner.
Among the bidders here was Colin Cripps, guitarist for Blue Rodeo, who told us that as a Canadian musician, he knows what this collection means and how important it is to have Lightfoot remembered.
You're not just seeing Gord as the famous Gordon Lightfoot and all the songs and music that we know, but you're also seeing all the early years of when he was developing.
Now, the auction house says the money collected is going back to the estate, with plans to donate some to the Gordon Lightfoot exhibit in his hometown of Orillia.
We have the amps.
I also caught up with the senior appraiser about curating this collection of music history.
It's not just art, like there are objects, there's pieces of sentimental history here. He held on to everything in his life.
This is a chance for fans and collectors to share in the legacy of a Canadian music icon. Griffin Yeager, CBC News, Toronto.
A suspect is in custody after 2 U.S. National Guard members were shot just blocks from the White House.
Where 2 of our brave members of the National Guard and the Department of War were brazenly attacked in a horrendous act of violence. They were shot. They're in critical condition.
The suspect was also shot and is in custody. Investigators are reviewing surveillance video to find out what happened. The presence of the National Guard on Washington streets has fueled tensions for months. It's part of the U.S. president's anti-crime crackdown. Last week, a federal judge ordered an end to the deployment, but put the order on pause to give the Trump administration time to appeal or remove the troops. Well, Canadians visiting U.S. national parks will soon have to pay higher admission prices as early as the new year. Tourists from outside the states will have to pony up $250 for an annual pass, while U.S. residents will pay $80. Residents will also get priority access. The American government says any extra revenue will be used for conservation and improving the parks. One of the closest national parks to us is Isle Royale in Michigan. Old St. Nick will be stopping his sleigh here in Windsor before Christmas at the 58th annual Santa Claus Parade.
Santa Claus is coming back to town. Santa Claus Parade, happy to announce once again, is coming back downtown Saturday, December the 6th.
Parade will step off from Giles and Ouellette at 6 p.m. Parade continues south to Pitt Street, so it's a straight run from Giles to Pitt. Come early if you're looking to grab a seat, because we know historically that Windsor loves their parades and they come out in masses to enjoy them. This year marks one of the largest parades I've seen in the last 20 years. To pass any one spot on the parade route probably take about an hour and a half. Scope out your spot early, make sure you get there. If you're bringing little ones, make sure that you dress them warm.
Very fun for Mrs. Claus and myself, as well as the people watching the parade.
CBC's Make the Season Kind campaign is back. Across the country, we're helping raise money for food banks, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Locally, you'd be supporting the Unemployed Help Center of Windsor's Food Bank. To find out how you can contribute, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and look for this banner. Next Friday, December 5th, be sure to tune in to this show for our special Make the Season Kind broadcast. There'll be music, decorations, and lots of coverage focusing on giving back. And we want to give back to you as well. Send an email to windsor@cbc.ca with a story about kindness. Whether it's something you did or you heard about, we want to know. I'll read them all, I swear. And there's swag up for grabs. If you email in, we'll enter your name in a draw to win a toque just like this one. We've got a whole box of them, so good luck, everyone. Still ahead, we'll take you from Windsor all the way to the Middle East, where challenging conditions are making everyday life a struggle for families. More on that just ahead. In Gaza, years of conflict are taking a toll. These days, rising prices and heavy rains are making it tough for people to get basic necessities. As Tom Perry explains, for many displaced families, the situation is desperate.
We've been speaking to humanitarian groups operating in Gaza about really two of the basic necessities of life, shelter and food. On shelter, we've been seeing these images coming out of Gaza. There were heavy rains this week, and people living in tents and makeshift shelters were just flooded out of these structures. They were soaked, they were trying to clean up the water, but it's really just a very miserable time when that happens for people living in conditions like this.
It's really a desperate situation, and parents have shared with us how deeply upsetting it is for their children to be crying because of the cold, because of the wet, and there is nothing for them to do to support their children.
Now, the other necessity of life, of course, is food. I spoke to Martin Penner from the World Food Program. He says they've been able to bring in about 2/3 of the food that they wanted to bring in to Gaza to help people. He points out, though, aid is getting in, and so are commercial goods. You see markets in Gaza right now that are operating, that are full of fresh fruit and vegetables, but the fact is a lot of people can't afford that.
People in Gaza, they've been through a war of 2 years. Most of them don't have jobs, don't have incomes. So that food that you can see, most people can't afford to buy it.
He's urging the Israeli government to open up all the entranceways into Gaza. Right now, there are 2 passageways in the south, one in the north, where aid is getting into the territory. He's saying open them all up to just flood the zone with as much aid as possible to make sure the people in Gaza, especially the ones who can't afford to go to the markets, that they get the food and the assistance that they need. Tom Perry, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Russia has confirmed that new talks with the U.S. are set for next week. On the agenda, the war in Ukraine. Crystal Gamansing has more.
At a critical point in peace talks, a recording of a telephone call between U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and the Russian president's foreign policy advisor, Yuri Ushakov, has been leaked. Bloomberg published a transcript of that call from October 14th. It revealed, among other things, how Witkoff encouraged the Kremlin to propose a multi-point peace plan with what Russia wanted to bring an end to the war. The White House spokesperson said that original 28-point plan, which was also leaked to the media, was quietly in the works for about a month, that it was crafted by Witkoff and Secretary of State Marco Rubio with input from Russia and Ukraine. European critics of that plan said it read like a Russian wish list. U.S. President Donald Trump on board Air Force One said the first proposal was just a starting point. Each side has been making adjustments and that the war needs to end.
This war could go on for years, and Russia's got a lot more people, got a lot more soldiers, So I think if Ukraine can make a deal, it's a good thing. I think it's great for both. Frankly, I think it's great for both.
It is true that Russia has more people to put into the fight, but Ukraine has managed, with support from its allies, to defend its territory. Remember, it was thought that Russia would overtake Ukraine, including the capital, within a matter of days. We are nearly at the 4-year anniversary. Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has stated today that it is not abandoning any of Russia's approaches to the special military operation and that there can be no talk of any Russian concessions. The EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas says the only way to stop Russia is to increase sanctions while increasing arms and financial support.
We have one aggressor and one victim. The focus should be on what Russia, the aggressor, must do, not what Ukraine, the victim, must sacrifice.
Kallas says the only way to stop Russia is to increase sanctions while increasing arms and financial support to Ukraine. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Still ahead, check in on your forecast once again. Our weather specialist, Riley, is standing by to tell you what you need to know. Stay with us for that. In Windsor, we're facing a special weather alert, and Environment Canada's weather alert system is looking brand new. Riley has the details.
Thanks, Acton. Yeah, I was mentioning this the special weather statement that we have in place for southwestern Ontario and a good chunk of southern Ontario earlier, but you may have heard about this today, but I'll remind you that we have had some changes to how weather alerts are issued in Canada. We're using a color-coded alert system now. So the yellow alerts being hazardous weather, prepare for the potential for some significant weather to move through. One level up from that would be the orange alert level, which is conditions that are likely to cause severe damage or have major impacts as we get into the coming days. And of course, the most rare and most severe would be the red alerts, which is issued for possibly life-threatening impacts. So I know it'll take a while to get our heads kind of wrapped around this, but we do have some alerts in place. I mentioned the special weather statement looking at gusts of up to 90 kilometers an hour throughout the day tomorrow, but we do have one of those orange alerts in place, a snow squall watch. This is because of the potential on the shores of Lake Huron that we could get locally up to 50 centimeters of snow in some places around Goderich, even as far east and north as Barrie, for example. In southwestern Ontario, though, I am watching the winds, because as we see a shift in winds as we get through the day tomorrow, this could push some of those streamers off of Lake Michigan into Windsor, Chatham, Kent, for example, as we get through the next 24 hours or so. So this takes us out to about 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, looking at winds starting to back off by late afternoon tomorrow, but still staying very breezy as we get through the next 24, 36 hours at this point. And you can see some of those streamers pushing off of the lakes as we get into the day on overnight into Wednesday morning here. You can see some of that transitioning over to snowfall, I should say, on Lake Erie. But as we push forward into Thursday, you can see some of these bands, according to this forecast modeling, making it into Windsor, Chatham, Kent, for example, but a more steady lake effect snow event off the shores of Lake Huron. So we are looking at a prolonged event here. We'll be potentially into some on and off flurries or some snow squalls as we get through the next 24 or 36 hours. What we're looking at, maybe a centimeter or two in Windsor. It'll all depend on the winds as we get through the next 24 hours. We will start the day around the freezing mark, -1 in Windsor first thing, getting up to 1 degree tomorrow afternoon. Again, very windy Thursday, Friday, Acton, and temperatures staying very close to the freezing mark as we get through the long range.
Thanks, Riley. That's our show. Thanks for watching, folks, and we'll see you next time.